Religion is a great way to make peace with yourself, but as a philosophy, it fails in every sense of the word. In this video, we will respectfully look at the 5 main reasons why that is, at least in my opinion. A Catholic, someone who is baptized Catholic, in the majority Orthodox nation of Romania. I am Elias Pisot, and this is why religion fails as a philosophy. I'll start by assuring you that this isn't a video made to convert you to atheism. Quite the opposite, actually. As a God-believing, God-fearing human being, you should be aware of the atheist criticisms of religion. That way, you can fortify your worldview. Because blind faith is not going to be enough, and it isn't very noble either. Coming up in first place on the list of things that make religion fundamentally flawed as a worldview, which is basically what a philosophy is assigning the same meaning to everybody. Whether it be giving your life to Christ or devoting your life to Allah, religion, without discrimination, absolutely zero discrimination, gives the same meaning of life to pretty much everybody. No matter their age, background, interests, what they consider to be the meaning of their lives, whatever, etc. But why is that wrong, you might be asking? Isn't giving people a meaning of life to devote themselves to something good? Doesn't that give more happiness than sadness? Well, objectively speaking, yes. But there is one huge red flag with that. That a single meaning of life categorically cannot be forced upon everybody, because everybody has a different meaning that they need to find for themselves, at least according to existentialism. And also, you can't expect everybody to devote their lives to a certain religious figure. That's absurd. And of course, it's not forcing a meaning of life like being a carpenter to everyone, fucking cutting wood, but worshipping a deity, worshipping Allah, worshipping Christ, everybody loving a single figure. That seems a little bit excessive. That seems a little bit absurd. I don't think you really need it that much. And I've heard this really poor argument from religious people, that God does not need your validation or worship. What the hell do you mean by that? In case you weren't aware, there's an entire book that tells you what to do in Christianity. There's an entire book that tells you what to do in Islam. And a large part of devoting yourself to that religion is praising that religion's God, putting your blind faith into him, and just generally validating the God. It sounds like that, at least. That's not what a perfect deity does. That's what an insecure deity does. Secondly comes the forceful nature of religion. Every single religion out there thinks it's the only one that's true. If we look at Islam, for example, it's pretty clear that they respect Christianity a fair bit. The Quran literally says that the Virgin Mary, from what I know, it literally says that the Virgin Mary is the greatest person to ever exist, and it requires its followers to admit that. The Virgin Mary is the greatest person to ever exist. But that doesn't mean that they need to necessarily understand the belief system under that religion, under Christianity. They can still completely dismiss it from a religious point of view and disbelieve in it. And it's the same way the other way around. Only that Christians don't respect Islam that much. A religious zealot will consider their religion as the most optimal and force it upon a lot of goddamn people, without taking into consideration what's optimal for that group of people, for that specific person, and just promoting the shit out of the religion because it's what works for them. Thirdly, I have the worship of a perfect deity, mostly because it shatters when you look at the real world. The problem of evil, which is basically the argument that God can't possibly be good, let alone perfect, because of all of the suffering and death and trauma and pain happening in the world, is pretty impossible to counteract without sounding completely tone deaf. People will tell you, but believing in God in spite of all of the bad things that happen, believing in him in spite of all of the tragedy and pain is what true belief looks like. That is true virtue. And that's all fine and dandy. I believe you. But don't say that to me. Say that to this starving child in Africa, who is already dead, by the way. That is, if you dare say it. To me, seeing God as a figure of perfection is fucking insane. But even if he might be a little bit sadistic, that doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't exist. Seeing God as a flawed individual, because he did ultimately make us in his image, at least according to the major doctrines, at least the Christian doctrine, that means that he himself is also flawed, like every single one of us. That, to me, is a lot more constructive, a lot more healthy of a belief than whatever perfection you're envisioning right now when you're thinking of the word God. Fourth is a lack of reason when it comes to the belief. Most religious people don't really challenge their beliefs with anything, let alone a video like this, which is designed to challenge your beliefs, your religious beliefs, to the absolute max. Most people believe in God because it's the right thing to do. They are used to believing in God. Very few have actually sat down, watched something, read something, and rationalized through the process of belief in religion. That's not to say that there aren't any rational arguments for believing in God. You can absolutely destroy, beat the shit out of my entry arguments in this video if you're slightly above the average person when it comes to culture, religious culture. It's not hard at all to do. There are so many counter arguments to what I've presented so far. You just need to actually, get your hands on them. You, as someone who could truly believe in God, need to go through a process of rationalization that gets you to the point where you can accurately conclude that God is real. Not just say, okay, he's real, accept it as fact, and move on with your life. That is not what true belief looks like. And guess what? I've also heard people argue that you should not inform yourself when it comes to God. You should not, do your research. Probably because they know if you rationalize too deeply, you'll end up an atheist. Not necessarily, but most people don't actually have that level of belief when looking at all the evidence and arguments and debates to still come out as God-fearing, God-believing people. Now, you can't believe in God without having informed yourself, without having rationalized anything. That's on you. I'm not going to be assuming responsibility, though. And fifth, and arguably the most egregious, is the condescending attitude people have about it. Devout Christians and Muslims and Jews will deadass dismiss a person's opinion or think that they're better than them just because that person is an atheist, just because they're more religious than that person. You tell a room full of religious people that you don't believe in God, and they will be shooting daggers at you. Arguably, shooting even more daggers than they shoot at other religions. As an absurdist, I'm not gonna judge you if you believe in God or don't believe in God. I'm going to give you all of the materials you need to either believe or not believe, or mostly not believe because it's like my own personal preference. It's a choice at the end of the day if you're going to believe or not, but if you're going to believe, I think you should look at the evidence and really research it and go through a process of rationalization, whatever. I'm not gonna judge you for not believing or believing. Even though I don't believe, I'm not gonna judge you for believing. It would be an absurd act, but I don't do it. But if a religious person or someone who just says that they're religious and who believes in God finds out you're an atheist, they will try pretty hard to convert you to some sort of religion, to some belief in God. This is why most atheists can't really say, I'm an atheist. They need to label themselves as agnostic or other fancy titles like absurdist or nihilist or existentialist, even though existentialists can also believe in God. Too complicated. And that's it. Those are the 5 arguments. Debate them in the comments as much as you'd like. We're done for now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below why you believe in God, if you believe in God, and counter arguments to my arguments in this video. If you don't believe in God, provide even more arguments and just go ham in there. Of course, keep it civil, but not too civil. I wanna have like popcorn in front of me whilst reading the conversations, because they get really good on this channel. I'll see you later, and stronger and smarter and less religious or more religious than ever.